They called them toys. The Japanese tank crews laughed the first time they saw them. Open-topped, canvas-roofed, no armor, no guns worth mentioning. To them, the Willys MB was a farmer's cart with a steering wheel. Yet within months, these same jeeps would tear through the jungles of Burma, threading mud, vines, and death, cutting supply lines, ambushing convoys, and doing what no tank could. The paradox was brutal. Japan's armored divisions were outmaneuvered not by heavier machines, but by 2,400-pound strips of steel and rubber powered by an engine smaller than a kitchen stove. The year was 1943. The war in Burma had turned into a nightmare of rain, rot, and starvation. Japan's 15th Army, 85,000 strong, had pushed across the Chindwin River to strangle British India from the east. The Allied defense depended on one truth: the jungle could be weaponized. Thick forests, 30-foot bamboo, and rainfall measured in tons per week turned tanks into coffins. A Type 95 Heigo, Japan's workhorse light tank, weighed nearly 8 tons. It could crawl at 25 miles per hour on open ground, but in Burma's sodden valleys, its treads clogged with red clay before it had gone 10 yards. The Willys Jeep, by contrast, weighed less than a third of that. Its 60-horsepower Go Devil engine guzzling only a gallon of fuel every 15 miles. Major General Ord Wingate saw this imbalance not as weakness but opportunity. His Chindits, long-range penetration groups, didn't need armor. They needed movement. Each Jeep carried twin Vickers K guns, 50-round drums strapped on both sides, and could be disassembled, slung under transport gliders, then reassembled behind Japanese lines in under an hour. "We will fight the enemy with legs of steel," Wingate wrote in his field notes. March 1943, and he will find no path to follow. Wingate. 1943, War Diary, CAAC Archive. The first test came near Maulu, March 12, 1943. Japanese tanks of the 14th Tank Regiment advanced to crush what they thought was a scattered British patrol. The Chindits waited hidden in teak groves. As the Haigos churned forward, jeeps erupted from both flanks, headlights blacked out, firing tracers into exposed fuel drums and engine grills. The Japanese armor, only 12mm at its thickest, melted under incendiary fire. Within 12 minutes, 5 tanks burned. The jeeps vanished back into the tree line, engines echoing like thunder fading into mist. A survivor later wrote, "They came from nowhere, fast as ghosts. And then all around us the forest burned." Lieutenant Kenji Sato, after-action letter, Imperial Archives, 1943. Each Jeep cost the U.S. Army $830 to produce. A single Japanese tank required 20 times that in steel, labor, and transport. But the true genius wasn't economic, it was logistical. American engineers fitted the Jeeps with shallow-tread jungle tires, their sidewalls reinforced with corded nylon to resist bamboo puncture. They mounted electric winches capable of dragging a 4-ton load up a 40-degree slope. And when bridges were gone, a 4-man crew could lift the Jeep's nose, slide it across felled logs, and keep moving. "No other vehicle," wrote a 14th Army supply officer, "could be carried in, assembled under fire, then used to bring the wounded out," capped A.J. Morrison. 14th Army Logistics Report, 1944. By late 1943, Allied planners turned the Jeep from transport into weapon. Each carried 303 Browning machine guns, 2-inch mortars, or racks of 60mm rocket salvage from downed P-40s. A platoon of 8 Jeeps could unleash more firepower in 60 seconds than a company of infantry. They were mobile artillery batteries disguised as mail trucks. Their radios, SCR 510 sets with a 5-mile range, let them coordinate airstrikes in real time, directing P-47 Thunderbolts through canyons, where tanks dared not tread. When Japan launched Operation Yugo in early 1944, the invasion of India, Through Imphal and Kohima, they expected to sweep aside tired colonial troops. Instead, they found themselves stalked by jeeps that moved through night like insects. The narrow mountain roads of Manipur echoed with the hiss of engines and the rhythmic crunch of tires on gravel. Rain fell in walls. Mud swallowed boots to the knees. Yet the jeeps climbed 5,000-foot ridges, forded rivers, and struck convoys loaded with ammunition and rice. A Japanese captain captured near Shenam later admitted, "We could not understand how the enemy appeared in places we thought impassable. We believed they used tanks of the air." Captain Ichiro Tajima. Interrogation transcript. SEACHQ 1944. At the Battle of Imphal. From March to July 1944, 120,000 Japanese soldiers were encircled and starved. American and Indian units used jeeps to haul in food, fuel, and even artillery shells. Each jeep convoy replaced 40 pack mules. They moved 3,000 tons of supplies per week over terrain where a single tank would have broken down in minutes. In the chaos of retreat, Japanese tankers tried to reposition their Hagos along the Tidum Road, but the monsoon turned their advance into quicksand. The jeeps came at dawn, silent, rolling downhill in neutral, headlights covered in cloth, firing phosphorus grenades into immobilized tanks. The jungle canopy glowed orange, the smell of burning fuel mixing with wet soil and cordite. Inside the cockpits, the experience was both exhilaration and terror. Drivers described the steering wheel shaking violently over roots and stones. One said it felt like riding a tin can down a waterfall. Exhaust fumes mingled with sweat and mosquito spray. The roar of engines drowned the rain. "You didn't think about dying," wrote Sergeant Bill Carver. 307th Composite Unit, Merrill's Marauders, "only about keeping the wheels spinning and the gun pointed where the tracer went." Personal letter home, 1944. Technically, the Jeep was never designed for war this way. Its 134 cubic inch engine produced barely 105 pound-feet of torque, but its simplicity was its armor. Spark plugs could be cleaned with a rag, carburetors swapped in minutes, and the 15-gallon tank refilled from jerry cans in seconds. Japanese mechanics cursed their own machines. The Hago's Mitsubishi A6122 VDE engine overheated in tropical heat, and spare parts had to be shipped 2,000 miles from the home islands. By contrast, the Allies parachuted Jeep components into clearings wrapped in tarpaulins. Within hours, new convoys were running. The psychological toll was immense. For the first time, Japanese infantry, trained to ambush slow, predictable targets, faced an enemy that refused to stay still. Jeep columns moved with the speed of cavalry and the cunning of guerrillas. They'd appear on ridges, vanish into ravines, and strike from behind. Machine gun chatter echoed like metallic rain. Villages that believed themselves liberated by Japanese forces woke to find Allied jeeps parked in their courtyards, engines idling. To the Japanese command, it seemed impossible. "We planned against tanks and artillery," wrote General Mutaguchi in his after-action notes, "but we were defeated by the enemy's horses of iron." Mutaguchi. Post-war diary, 1946. By mid-1945, nearly 640,000 Jeeps had been produced worldwide, one for every 50 U.S. soldiers. In Burma, each one averaged 1,200 miles of jungle combat before being scrapped or lost. They became both lifeline and legend. Engineers of the 45th General Service Regiment used Jeeps to haul portable bridges, water pumps, even entire radar units. One converted Jeep, nicknamed Lil Buzzard, carried a generator powering a field hospital for 60 hours straight after a Japanese shell cut power cables. The Japanese response came too late. They experimented with ultra-light armored cars like the Type 2 Kami, designed for amphibious landings. But these vehicles, weighing nearly 13 tons, sank in Burma's swamp valleys before firing a shot. The jungle had chosen its victor, not the heavier but the smarter. The Jeep's small size let it slip through bamboo like a bullet through paper. When the war ended, Allied analysts studied the Burma Campaign to decode its lessons. They found that every mile of Jeep trail cut through jungle cost less than 1/10 of a paved road, yet delivered 6 times the mobility. In terrain where tanks advanced 200 yards a day, Jeeps covered 20 miles. Strategy, they realized, was not always about superiority of firepower, but of adaptability. In the ruins of Mandalay, an American officer stood beside a burned Hago and a mud-spattered Jeep, both silent monuments of industrial philosophy. One was designed for dominance, the other for endurance. One demanded infrastructure. The other created its own. Even Japanese survivors later admitted grudging admiration. In a 1947 memoir, former Lieutenant Tadashi Okabe wrote, "We believed the enemy's light vehicles were folly. Yet they were more terrible than tanks because they came where no tank could, and they never stopped coming." Okabe, Memoirs of Burma Campaign, 1947. The Jeep's legacy outlived the war. Its descendants would roll through Korea, Vietnam, and every battlefield that demanded speed over armor. But its true victory began in Burma's suffocating jungles, where the laws of conventional warfare dissolved. There, a machine born in Detroit rewrote the rules of combat not with armor or guns, but with mobility, ingenuity, and unrelenting persistence. When Japan's tanks bogged down in the mud, the Jeep kept climbing. When engines failed, its drivers pushed. When the jungle swallowed roads, it made new ones. In a war measured by tons of bombs and rivers of blood, it was a 60-horsepower engine that proved the mightiest weapon was not strength, but movement.